novel that has come out. Otherwise, she's a writer and a translator, and she's done many works before that. And this this book, her first novel is All the Way Home. It's published by Li-Fi Publications. I'll take you through the program, which promises to be a rich discussion on literature, science and new age storytelling. But before we begin, I would like to invite His Excellency Navi Patel, the High Commissioner of Canada in India, to say a few words.
Thank you, Rashmari, and thank you everyone for joining this evening. First of all, let me just take this opportunity to welcome you all to Canada House, and in particular, Archana. We're very honored that we're able to have this distinguished group of individuals here for such a wonderful event, and Professor Satpathy, thank you very much for taking this time as well. Let me just say, first of all, we were doing this event outside, and it started raining unexpectedly, and in Canada, when that happens for an event, I don't know about here, it's a very good sign of, it's a sign of good fortune and a very auspicious, and so, yeah, excellent, okay. And so that brought us all here in a very intimate environment, so forgive the last minute change, but at the same time, I think it provides a very nice informal feel to the evening, and we want to keep it that way as well. Let me just say this, we, Canada, India, continue to experience a very robust relationship where our programs continue to grow. We have record two-way trade, record investment, record tourism, record immigration visits, all kinds of different new high marks are being set in the relationship. But the area that we were really actively engaging to deepen and broaden the relationship is around creative industries. And of course, part of that includes literature and writing. And so it doesn't get any better than to take advantage of an opportunity where we have one of our own members of the High Commission family, and that's Archana, and bringing together the publishing community, friends and family to celebrate her success, but also showcase a little bit of talent as it relates to, okay, this is not working, so we're going to have to come back on this mic, but I'll just finish up here. To showcase a little bit of talent, but also use that to sort of advance the Canada-India relationship in this space as well. And that's what this evening was all about. It was meant to be informal. It's meant for an opportunity to connect with the publishing community, support an author who happens to be one of our own. And this is one of those rare and unique privileges where we're able to say thank you to a very, very talented employee for doing something very, very special. So I certainly hope you enjoy this evening. I wanted to acknowledge our Deputy High Commissioner, Soo-Young Park, who is here, as well as Matt Friesen, who heads up our Advocacy Public Affairs program. We have a number of other staff from the High Commission, so take advantage of the fact that they're here. I'm going to turn it back over to Raj Kumar, who's going to lead us through this interaction over the next little while, and then we've got a full dinner for everyone. Just help yourselves and circulate as much as you want, and if it opens up outside, feel free to go back outside after as well. So once again, thank you very much for coming. Welcome. We're very honored. Archana, congratulations on this. You make us all very, very proud, and we look forward to following your ongoing success. As you continue to grow and thrive in your success, don't leave the High Commission and don't forget us little people, okay? Back over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, His Excellency. And I also wanted to let you know that we also have amongst us renowned author Ms. Namita Gokhale, who is also the director of Jaipur Literature Festival. She's left. We have Mr. Suresh Rituparna.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Director KK Birla Foundation. We have Ms. Nitya Sareen from Earth. And speak with her. Huh? Yeah, speak. She's there? filmmaker Sanjay Singh.
He's not here yet.
No.
One is here.
Okay. So now I would request Professor Satpathy, Ms. Rachna Mirajkar, publisher, Lifeway Publications, Mr. N.K. Mittal, to come on stage for the unveiling of the book.
Okay.
Thank you so much, His Excellency.
Short film.
Now we'll have a short, we'll just go watch a short film, a 60-second film on the book.
Meet the humans of Swarg. Sherlock, the scientist obsessed with finding a clue to the origin of life, and Arushi, the crusader who unearthed secrets of the lost civilization. Will Mission Earth find clues to the hidden origin of life? What is the message hidden in this recurring dream? Read this captivating tale that shatters the conventional notions of space and time and reveals a reality beyond the mundane life.
Have you ever wondered what life is all about? What is the future of humanity? How will relationships work in the future? Will humans evolve into a superhuman species? Read on to find more. All the Way Home will take you on a journey to the future that transcends the fabric of space and time.
Now, Professor Satpathy.
Meet the humans of Swarg.
Thank you. Professor Satpathy now will have a small Q&A session with Ms. Mirajkar. Professor Satpathy, you must be knowing that he was the head of the Department of English at Delhi University. And his area of expertise includes literary modernism, Indian literary culture and Odisha studies. And his other area of interest is literary nonsense. He's authored and edited 12 books and published numerous research papers in Indian and international journals. And he's also supervised a number of PhD and MPhil dissertations. And Rachna Mirajkar works as a senior media and communication officer at the High Commission of Canada. And she's been a journalist who worked with a number of newspapers before she quit journalism and jumped over to the other side. And she's not new to the literary world. She's been writing all the while. She's been translating books. But this particular novel is her first book on science fiction. I loved it. Though I'll honestly say I haven't read it full. But whatever I've read, I'm like on it. It's a lovely book. You all must read it. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And somebody can make a film on it. It will be a very nice film to watch. Professor Satpathy.
And before we begin, that's Mr. Sanjay Singh who created
Hi.
this
Yeah,
film
yeah.
that we just watched.
Sir, that was excellently done short film, but you can have a bigger one on that. It will be very nice. Yeah. Thank you so much. So, Professor Satpathy, I hand over back to you.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here at the residence of the High Commissioner. Thank you very much, His Excellency Nadi Patel, for the hospitality and the staff of the Canadian High Commission. I'm very happy to see quite a few Canadianists. Some of us have been associated with Canadian studies, and we have tried to promote some kind of symbiotic relationship between Canadian and Indian cultures in the past. So that's all the more reason to be here, though the occasion is somewhat different, and it's a great pleasure to be part of an event which celebrates the release of a book, the publication of a book, a debut novel by the author Archana Miraskar. I'm thankful to her and the publishers, Liffey. I've been associated with the publishing house Liffey over the last few years. Quite a few of my friends have published novels. Liffey, as you know, is literary fiction. That's a short form. Unless some of you might wonder what Liffey stands for. I was just told by Rakeshji that sometime back when Shashi Tharoor came across this name, he said, "What is this Li-Fi?" So it's not, it sounds like Wi-Fi or Hi-Fi, but it's actually Liffey. So I'm very happy to be associated with this debut novel. I'm also very happy that Archana Miraskar has published writing in Marathi, science fiction, which is a neglected genre across the Indian languages. We do not see, I think, except for 2 or 3 linguistic cultures, say Bangla, Marathi, and 1 or 2 others. I think science fiction has been a neglected genre. So I'm very happy that she has already written quite a bit, though this is her debut novel in English. She has written quite a bit of science fiction.
No.
Sorry.
I will have to correct you.
Oh,
this is my first science fiction. Yeah.
But you have written on scientific subjects as well.
No, read a lot about scientific subjects, but my other writing in Marathi has not yet been on science.
I hope you'll write more, even in the Indian language of Marathi, because this is a neglected genre. I know for sure that in Odia and some other languages in India, there are very few writers who have written science fiction. Correct me if I'm wrong, depending on what languages you are familiar with, Indian languages you are familiar with. But to call this as a work of science fiction and nothing else would be a misnomer, because there is some mythology. And Jack Nalika, the preeminent Marathi writer of science fiction, also says that he has drawn on Indian mythology, and as an astrophysicist, he finds that there are a lot of inspirational narratives within our mythology in India. So at the same time, I would like to congratulate you for attempting to write science fiction, because as again Jayant Nalika said, this is a very difficult subject. He talks about how there are 4 or 5 different kinds of writing on science, which academics, scholars, scientists write, 3 or 4, say papers, scholarly papers on scientific issues. But the most difficult, the most challenging is to write science fiction for the common reader, because on the one hand, the common reader, he says, Jan Nalika says, might, if the writer tries to explain scientific facts and events in great detail, then it might sound like trying to educate. It's a bit pedagogic. It might smack of pedagogy. At the same time, if the writer takes the reader to be things that the reader is familiar with the scientific facts, then he could be or she could be quite wrong. So it's quite a challenge according to Jayant Nalika. So I will begin by asking. I won't spoil the narrative, because by a spoiler. I do not want to tell the story of All the Way Home. But I must tell you what happened when I mentioned the title to one of my friends. He said the writer must be one of the diasporic writers who is thinking about the homeland, the family direct. So this is the standard response. But this is not the home that the book deals with. It's our own earth. And this particular novel is unique in the sense that it's a combination of dystopia and utopia. The events with which the novel begins are utopian. It's about a new universe to which human beings have migrated, and they have tried to correct all the mistakes that mankind had made on the planet Earth. So in that sense, there are a large number of references to many of the things which they have gotten rid of. For example, religion, which is perhaps the reason why there have been so many wars, so much of discontentment and strife that they have done away with. Similarly, several institutions such as the institution of marriage, they are modified. Now, why is this alternative universe or other alternative world imagined, the utopian world? It's because this particular world is destroyed. So in that sense, it's a futuristic novel about what happens to Mother Earth. And that the way events are foretold about Mother Earth, where human beings misuse all the discoveries and inventions they've made, and they become self-destructive. And this earth is destroyed entirely. Human race is wiped off from this planet. But in the meantime, advanced science had ensured that man has discovered a different planet where they set up their own homes, and through advanced science they ensure that one of the things that they have achieved is a photosynthetic life where intake of food is not required. They simply sit out in the sun, and through photosynthesis they get their energy, and they are able to fly at a great speed, and so on and so forth. But a time comes when some of these scientists, they actually think of revisiting the old earth. And then the events that unfold in the second half of the book, I'm not going to spoil. They amount to being a spoiler, so I'm not going to touch on those aspects. However, the scientist, one of the things that she does in her novel, and I'm going to ask her that particular question by and by, but let's begin by asking you, Archana, what made you think of writing this kind of work, and why did you shift from your mother tongue, Marathi, to English? These are two questions in one.
Yes. So, firstly, the writing about this book. So, as I've told a few people who have read this, the idea of this book came to me when I was on a hospital bed, sick, admitted to a hospital for about a week. I had nothing to do, empty mind. So, suddenly the spark of this idea came into my mind. But obviously, that is the trigger. Before anything emerges in the mind of any writer, there is a huge thought process behind that. Subconsciously at first, there's a lot of churning of thoughts, there's a lot of contemplation. We live in an information age, every day we are imbibing so much, and then through contemplation and through imagination, something is always there in the subconscious, and by some trigger it rises to the surface, and then I think the conscious process of writing begins. So, yes, as Professor Satpathy said, this outwardly looks like a science fiction, but there's a lot of philosophical base to it, and I'm particularly influenced a lot by the philosophy of Carl Jung, where he discusses the individual and the collective subconscious. So the individual subconscious is our memories, our experiences, which we are unaware of in our conscious state. Whereas in the collective subconscious is the set of memories and ideas that we are all born with, you know, and these then turn into archetypes. And I used a lot of archetypes in this book. There is the quest, of course. There is the mother figure. There is the dream, recurring dream, and all these things I'm sure were there somewhere in my mind, and then this was the trigger. And very interestingly, the beginning and the end came to my mind first, and then I actually asked my father to give my laptop there, and I started typing it out there. And because of the nature of the story, and I think because it involved a lot of scientific, it's futuristic, which is why I probably thought about writing it in English. So far in my life, I have always written a lot because my profession also demands it. But there has been a divide. All my professional, work-related writing has always been in English when I was a journalist or even in this present job. But all my creative writing has always been in Marathi because I have this background. My parents were professors of Marathi. I grew up reading a lot of Marathi literature, and so writing in Marathi probably came naturally to me. But I think with this book, I'm bridging that gap of my the dichotomy in my writing and adopted this English language. Although I am a student of English literature, I did my master's in English literature and fortunately even took admission for MPhil in university. I was feeling so fortunate, but I had to give that up. So yeah, I think that's the reason.
Okay, thank you. And you know, the other thing that I was intrigued by is the way you conceive utopian sword. You call it a sword. Though this new species, you know, they are actually human beings. They have mutated, and you know, through their own efforts, they have mutated into another kind of human. They are still human beings. But what I found was that they still have many of the emotions that we associate with human beings. There are fears, there are anxieties, and there are aspirations, ambitions, and of course emotion of love. So while conceiving this new planet, or this utopian life, utopian world, you are also talking about Eden.
Yes.
So are you influenced by some of the paradigms of utopia, whether it is
yeah, definitely.
Christian faith or Swarg in the Hindu faith, or
all of those? I think the concept of utopia is there in all the cultures, I think. And that's wishful thinking for man. I mean, there's so much of bad news. I mean, I'm sure anybody who opens a newspaper in the morning doesn't have to be told about what's wrong with our world, nature. So obviously, and then the corollary is that everybody wishes that this was not so, and wishes for a world. So I think this has been there since the beginning of human civilization, that we wish for a place where there are no ills or there's nothing bad. So yes, for me to imagine a dystopia was not difficult. Everything is wrong. In fact, when I began to write this novel, there was a lot of news about exploitation of children, and in my mind, I was trying to think of. I wanted to take all these children, the victims, to some land where there is no evil. So that is my kind of utopia. You know, I mean, everybody can have their own kind of utopia, and I think they do have their own utopia. But my kind of utopia is a world where, first of all, there is no evil. Then there is beauty. It's very beautiful if you read the novel passages where.
Very evocative.
So yeah, so if it is going to be a utopia, why not have it beautiful? So that's another thing. And also that world has complete choice of freedom, a complete freedom of choice. So anybody the way they want to live their life can live their life. So there are no restrictions of whatsoever. So that is the kind of utopia I had in mind, and also again I'm so much impressed or influenced by Indian philosophy, as T.S. Eliot has said, that no work of creation comes out of vacuum. So there is a lot of base that one imbibes, and it's already there whenever somebody writes. All that tradition, all that philosophy, it's part of our ethos or milieu, and the writing comes out of that. So even in, as our Yoga Sutra claims that the emotions, the feelings, the desires that man have, they are called vrittis, and when somebody gets attached to a particular emotion or a thought or a feeling, they transform into vasanas. And when humans get, or any particular person gets too attached to the vasana, that turns into sanskar. And that sanskar, every individual carries from one life to another. So as I said, initially also I was influenced by the philosophy of Carl Jung. He believes that during our dreams or certain instances of revelation, we have access to that subconscious. Now, I also feel, and that is what our Indian philosophy also tells us, that the sanskaras are carried from one birth to another. So perhaps we also have access to those in our dreams, and they are perpetuated. So that is what I have brought out in this through that recurring dream, or through these archetypes of Swarg or utopia, and the process that these evolved humans go through. And if they are able to control those strong feelings, then they have attained a little higher. So obviously, because they are humans, they are bound to have emotions, but they can control those emotions, and they don't get carried away with those. That's the difference.
I noticed that, and this is something that I liked about the book, your fascination with words. You seem to be playing with words. Wordplay is something that always attracts me in a work of fiction. Interestingly enough, the two names of scientists, one is Sherlock Winder and the other one is Cassie Northwell. They are anagrams of Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin. And they seem to be at loggerheads at certain points. So, was there any particular reason why you thought of these two scientists and the way you have placed them?
Yes, because the fundamental, I think the fundamental principle why this whole mission Earth is conceived is because of this quest to understand life. And as you all know, Charles Darwin is the father of evolution. He explained the evolution to us. So he was interested in how life began or how life evolved. And I myself am very, very fascinated by this question of life. Why did life begin? What was the purpose? Why not on other planets if that's a natural process? I was also influenced by Richard Dawkins' this wonderful book of The Selfish Gene, where he explains the beginning of life. And I've seen that once life began, there has been this incessant zest to continue life, right from the simple replicator found in the primordial oceans on Earth to the complicated animals found today, including man. Life perpetuates, it continues. So why? I mean, it's made of all those elements which are present in the inanimate world as well, so they could have remained that way. But once life begins, it tries its very best to survive. So this question is what this scientist Sherlock is bothered with, and which is why he sends that mission back to Earth to find the clues on that planet, the only planet in the universe which produced life. Because on the Swarg, they are only migrated to that planet, but the original planet is Earth. And and I have used these anagrams again because I have used this principle of rebirth and transmigration in the book. So this is another example of, because it's not just one or two person who experienced that, just to highlight that it's perpetual. And sometimes perhaps people who have strived to find answers to certain questions, if they have not found them in one birth, they might again try for it. So which is why this character is very much based on Charles Darwin. And Newton, again, he gave us the laws of gravitation. He's still fascinated with that subject. He sends a probe to the black hole. He wants to find more about gravitation. So those two characters are based on that.
And no work of literature is possible without taking up, the subject of man-woman relationship. Here, what I was very happy again to see that there's these people in the New World have abandoned the institution of marriage, and they can have multiple partners, lovers, and then when a child is conceived, they swear by an oath of commitment.
The parental pact.
The parental pact. What made you think of this as an utopian ideal?
I think at one point of time everybody thinks that it would have been good if there was no marriage or the restrictions imposed by this institution. But yes, I somehow see this as a natural progression. The way we are going, the civilization is going, people are more and more, wary of commitment or long relationships. We are now in a world where everything is happening very quickly. We want quick results, we want to show everything and then move on to something else. The attention spans are shortening. So I think that maybe, because the events in the novel take place 3,000 years from now. So it's a long period in future. We don't know where the society is going to be, but that's what I thought. And again, if this is a utopia, then there are no restrictions. So there is no... the people here are not against commitment, because actually a couple comes back, they live together again. But there are no institutionalized norms in that society. So that
also the responsibility of childbearing is not limited to the woman?
No, because they as mentioned in this book, every child is very much wanted, it's planned, and only when two people are committed, they are allowed to have a child, and they share completely the responsibility. And because there
is this dialogue about, when the child asks about, being in the...
Yes, the womb of the mother. Again, because there are two ways these humans get children. One is artificial, not just conception, but even the gestation is artificial, and they can just go and register in an agency and get a child. But if somebody wants to have a biological child, then they can have it. And despite being evolved humans, it's still the mother who has the capacity to bear a child.
Any particular reason why you have a girl child and a woman as the protagonist?
Because I think I'm a feminist. High time we had a woman protagonist.
When the story begins, when I first read the story right at the beginning, I thought the situation was very similar to what happens in Alice in Wonderland. And I thought maybe she's just dreaming and she'll wake up from this dream. So it's a world of fantasy to which the narrator takes us. Mm-hmm. But though there are dreams, they dream that there is no overarching dream as such. There are nightmares as well, not merely dreams. So the nightmares and the dreams divide the two worlds, the utopian and the dystopian. So in that sense, the novel is beautifully constructed. Mm-hmm. So how did you get this kind of training to write a novel which is structured like this? You thought long and hard?
I think just reading. I'm a voracious reader. I have read a lot, and I am very interested in not just the content or the story of a book, but also the form. Mm-hmm. And I've been very fortunate to read a lot and very diverse literature from all around the world. I was fortunate to have African literature as part of my studies, having been in the Canadian High Commission for now 9 years. I have read a lot of Canadian literature. British literature, of course, forms the basis of all master's courses, so of course that, and American literature, and a vast variety of Indian literature. I mean, it's amazing. It's a sad fact that not much of it gets known to the world, but we have some wonderful writers, and they have done really great work in even the art forms. I have translated stories from Indian literature, which is brings out translations of Indian authors in different languages into Hindi and English, and I have translated them into Marathi. So yes, and also my work as a translator helped me, because that's a completely different kind of way of dealing with literature, I think. It's different just to be a reader and different to just to be a writer, but when you are translating, I think that intimate relationship with a work which is not yours, but it's still in a way yours because you are trying to convey it to a different audience. So I think all that training probably helped me.
Okay, this is a question that I should have asked right at the beginning, but I'll ask you nonetheless. You seem to be quite taken up by the question of speed. All these human beings, you know, they have wings, they fly, and you even think of words such as zip and several other modes of communication. But no one is moving slowly. Everyone moves very fast and faster, and galactic, intergalactic travel. You seem to be, if I shouldn't be using this term, but quite obsessed by speed. How is it because of the traffic jam that you are
Probably. That is. But yes, space and time is something that I have tried to play with in this book. Time is very intriguing. Nobody has been really able to define time. And if there's also a chapter in this book which is called 5 years in 12 months. So time is very relative, and so far, I mean, the locality of a person was very much determined by time in the past. So time flew at a very even pace. Even say a couple of centuries ago, person was living in one particular place. The sun rose and set up. His days went on. If he got news of other places, the letter came after many days and only then. But now, with the advancement in communication technology, our sense of time has changed. I mean, we travel around the world, we cross different time zones, we get the news of on the other side of the planet in seconds. So our sense of time and imagine how much it will change if we start traveling to different planets. That's completely a different thing. And then here they are traveling interstellar. So from one solar system to another. And what I've seen here is these are the techniques that the scientists are now discussing, the spacewalk. So the space in front of the aircraft shrinks and it expands at the back, and that's how, I mean, by shrinking the space itself, it's not traveling through space, but it's making the space shrink, and that's how they are going to reach distance of 5 light years. And then when, of course, that's again very much closer to the speed of light, and anything that travels closer to the speed of light, the time slows down for that person. So they are going to do this journey of 1 year in which the people on their home planet back in Swarg would have lived for 5 years. And this I find very fascinating, and this is bound to come. I mean, we all know Elon Musk has launched his rocket, and NASA is planning to go to Mars. And these are the first steps, and after that, who knows in 3,000 years how much man will travel, and their sense of time will be completely different. And if we have to achieve all of that, then speed is important, I guess.
I also, how much time? Another 2 minutes?
10 minutes.
There is you have tried to fuse science fiction with mythology. The way it ends, it reminds us of the Hindu belief in rebirth.
Yes.
So how do you combine these two?
I would say philosophy more
science
than
and
more than mythology, probably philosophy,
yes,
because a lot of cutting-edge research now is asking the same questions that Indian philosophy had asked many years ago. people are now talking about multiverses. So there is a theory that there are n number of universes out there, not just our universe which is visible to us, and all the possibilities that can happen, anything that is possible is happening in one version of the universe somewhere. So again, that raises a whole lot of existential questions. Who are we? Maybe my another version is somewhere sitting in the audience and listening to something else. My other version is somewhere else, and these are the questions that Indian philosophy is trying to grapple with. Again, and the quantum mechanics in that realm, there is a relation between mind and matter. It's amazing that at the particulate small distances, when you say electrons and protons, what we all learn in school, electron is never, you can never locate the position of an electron. It's in a cloud of possibilities. And when there is a conscious observer, that cloud of possibilities collapses and you can pinpoint that electron somewhere. So all these questions are raising all those similar questions, I think, which are very much, and philosophers all over the world have perhaps asked these questions. It's just that I'm more familiar with the Indian philosophy, so that is reflected in my writing.
Actually, the questions that I am asking you are not so much my questions as the questions that I imagine all readers would encounter while reading your novel. So I anticipate those questions and I am asking you, but I also have this mischievous habit of asking difficult questions. And I thought I should ask you very difficult questions, some of which I thought were really difficult, ones that I've asked you, but you answered them in such a manner that they appeared so easy. And now I'll ask you the most difficult question. See, most of the writers of science fiction are scientists themselves, so they are coming from the vantage of tremendous body of knowledge about scientific facts. They've done their own research. I think this writer Fred Hoyle, he had discovered something, and when he wanted to write a research paper on the subject, it was rejected. It sounded very, quite fantastic. So he wrote science fiction on the same subject. And 10 or 15 years later, it was proved. Actually, what appeared to be fiction, science fiction, was actually proved. So, the large number of scientists who have turned to science fiction, you have mentioned some of them. But where does your training in science, astrophysics and genetic engineering and so on and so forth, where do you get that knowledge? Have you actually read some of the science?
So my formal training in science is, I would say, up to graduation. But I am very, very fascinated with physics, especially, and with life, biology. So I've read a lot of astrophysicists who write for common people, simplifying the difficult aspects. So starting with Carl Sagan and then going on to Brian Greene, Roger Penrose, Michio Kaku, Neil deGrasse Tyson. These are all wonderful contemporary astrophysicists who are writing for the late and popularizing the science. And
you also intuitively have grasped some of the
concepts.
For example, I came across a reference to glow bushes in your novel.
Yes.
And very recently I read something about this particular phenomenon in the newspaper.
So when I wrote this, I didn't know, this was just my imagination. So what happens is, these evolved humans have introduced, bioluminescence is a very well documented phenomenon. So especially marine life, there are certain fish species which glow in the dark. They produce their own light. So I imagine that these evolved species, they introduce that gene in plants, and their plants are bioluminescent, and so they don't have too much need for electricity or artificial lighting. So I call them glow bushes, and they are everywhere on this world. But yes, in 2017, MIT scientists have actually created a bioluminescent plant.
There are other concepts like viviting, you point some words.
Viviting is virtual visiting.
Home and space warp, shrinking of time, etc.
Yes.
Some of these things. So I think that's about all. But before ending, I would like to read out a small paragraph which I liked very much. And often we critics have wondered whether the male imagination and the female imagination are different, or a writer is a writer, gender neutral. But here I think this is something that to my mind only a woman can write. I'll just read it out, please bear with me. Arushi's mother had dreams full of aspirations. Her daughter would grow up to be a scientist like her and discover things and learn music perhaps and create something new. Aspirations that all parents had for their children. But being a daughter, the most wonderful thing she would ever create would be a human being, someone with unlimited potential, and the chain would continue long into an unseen future for centuries. Some characteristics of herself would continue to exist in the material realm of the universe years after her physical presence had ended. But would she be blessed thus? Fertility was a blessing endowed on very few. She knew how lucky she was to have a child. This is how a chapter ends. But the most poignant, connected to this, the most poignant part of the whole novel is the way it ends. There is no science there. It's all about human emotion and this kind of bonding between the mother and the daughter. In spite of all the intergalactic travel, in spite of all the scientists inventing and researching into different areas of knowledge, the way the novel ends, it's really poignant. It's heart-wrenching. You don't know, there are aspects of it which make you feel that it is utopian. There are aspects which make you feel that it is dystopian. That the mother, as I shouldn't say it, I think I should read it, and I wanted to mention this because this is something I really enjoyed reading. Thank you very much for giving this book to all of us. I'm sure we'll all read it and enjoy it. And I hope we'll write more.
Thank you, Professor Satpathy, for this wonderful conversation. And thank you, High Commissioner, for hosting this event for us. And thank you all of you for joining us. Now, if any one of you has any question, you can ask her. Yeah.
I congratulate you for this wonderful book. This book is a perfect combination of science and imagination. And you have written very nice description about sword, which is always fictional for us. But as a writer, what message you want to give us as a reader? So when we start reading, so we have that idea in our mind, what is the author's main focus point. So I want.
So you mean only for this book?
I want your, what is the message you want to give as a reader to us?
I would say, like, in general, just read more. I mean, I see very many people reading these days, including this book, of course. But read and imagine. I think imagination is very important, which all this electronic media is killing these days. So the more you read, the more you imagine, and perhaps if you read this, you will be able to. You are, a writer yourself. So the more you read, and I hope this book gives you some other ideas to write about.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Hi, Arsma. I'll just say, the only thing that I wanted to highlight, because Satpathy has spoken about almost everything, but the attention that you give to a child's rearing in terms of pedagogy, in terms of the learning, the academy and all of it. I mean, imagination is what you've just said, but it's also about carefully nurturing values, human emotions. So that is something fantastic. I mean, how do you get so much of knowledge about pedagogy and learning? Because as teachers, we are constantly grappling with what to teach, what not to teach.
I think it comes in my genes.
Yeah.
My parents were professors and I love teaching. So I teach little children whenever I get some time. So maybe
Congratulations. I think this
questions that he did. I just wanted to, I was wondering, in the context of Margaret Atwood, for instance, Handmaid's Tale, and yours, and many other kinds of imaginative scientific fiction, one thing that comes across is, yes, it's futuristic, definitely futuristic, the undercurrent, but at the same time, the grip over the present is so strong. And I'm just intrigued that Handmaid's Tale came out of extreme sensitivity to the present, contemporary times. So I'm just wondering, do you think that there is some kind of an anguish that you suffered through? And I can imagine, you writing it in the hospital, etc., wherein there is this vacancy of the mind where the subconscious kind of comes up. But what is this anguish which is coming out of the present times that pushes you to think of the future in the way that it does?
Yeah, I think every writer is extremely perceptive and sensitive person. Any writer writes because there is something bothering the writer. I think somebody very complacent with the present will not become a writer. So, writer is first of all, I think, a very perceptive person, and there is something that he wants to comment on, which Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale is one of the greatest books, I think, and dystopia is a tool frequently used by writers to comment upon the discrepancies, the paradoxes, the ills of the present society, and to paint a picture, because they want the reader to reflect on what is wrong with the present when they paint a dystopian picture.
Thank you. Archana, first of all, congratulations on this very wonderful achievement.
Thank you.
But just wanted to, what I've been able to, what I've been able to look at the book and listening to conversation between you and Sumanyu, two strong influences that I seem to see on your work appear to be Bernard Shaw and Plato. Back to Methuselah, and of course the whole idea of utopia, and many of us would agree that Plato was perhaps the father of utopian studies.
Yes.
I really wonder how conscious these are, and did you yourself notice these at any stage? Did these have a purpose? And second, I think Sumanyu's last remark that the book is not about emotions, I think is a strong message to humanity. That despite all the evolution and development in science, ultimately it's human emotion that rule. And I think that's a very strong message. Yes.
Thank you, that's true.
The first part.
You said Plato and what other issues?
Sure.
Yes, I mean, obviously I've studied those authors and their philosophy, and somewhere it must have been at the back of the mind, because they have built the edifice on which we all learn to think about these fundamental questions. I think the metaphysical base that I derive from is through the study of these two great authors.
Yeah, Archana, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Right. When I saw this all the way home, I remember Steven Spielberg actually. Because the E.T., extraterrestrial,
yes.
The word he uses only one,
yes.
home. That is what he really wanted to go back to his home actually. So that is what I remember. Number two is that when you say that it's an utopia, Swarg, where there is no evil.
True.
And there is no bliss. And happiness is there. But don't you think that happiness, where is there happiness and that kind of thing is there is a kind of a monotony.
Yeah.
Because if there is only happiness, all these years we have learned that there is evil and there is good actually. All through mythology, all through history.
So, but there is not just happiness in the...
So no, and
yeah.
I think we should talk about nightmares. Because I think nightmare is also a word which is used. So is nightmare evil there, or how is it explained? Because I have not read the novel. I just wanted to know about it.
So I would define evil as intentional hurting of another person. That is absolutely not there in this work. But emotions are very much there. I mean, they are all humans still. So I call them humans of Swarg. So they do have emotions, they do have ups and downs, they have disappointments, they have aspirations, but they do not get carried away by these emotions. And they do not take them to an extent and convert them into hatred. So they are able to bounce back, and which is why I call them evolved humans. So they are enlightened. Actually, the word that we have used is they are an enlightened species. Yeah. So that's the difference.
Hi Archana, congratulations. I just wanted to ask why this evil concept came to your mind during hospital? Anything like, that suffering, that anguish as one of us scientists, why this evil? Did you go through something harsh at that time?
So as I said, that was only the beginning. I came back, I was in Pune at that time on a holiday, and that's when this spark of an idea came to my mind. But it developed later. It took a long time to develop, and as I said, there is a substrata of a lot of thought processes before that. And yes, there, of course, tragedies.
I guess it is a bit personal, but I just
I think every novel has, every writer has an autobiographical element when one writes. People also say that all writers write just one story over and over again. I don't know how true that is, but yes, there is an autobiographical element in every writing.
Yeah, but by the end of the day, you proved yourself to be an author because that emotional connect was there, and that was quite vivid. As I haven't read the novel, but so many of us are speaking about the end thing, so now I'm hugely intrigued to read it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Archana. I haven't read the novel, but I think it must be very interesting. I just want to ask you, have you been influenced by writers, say Satyajit Ray? He wrote a lot of science fiction.
Science fiction, yes.
Has any of it, and another short part, has any of his science fiction been translated into Marathi?
Yes, it has been translated, and I have read a few stories by Satyajit Ray. But there is also a very rich tradition in Marathi of science fiction writers. Jayant Narikar himself
I've read it in English, but are there others also?
Yeah, Bal Phondke is a very prolific writer in Marathi science fiction. Narayan Tharak, who writes more on horror, fantasy, but also some science fiction.
Have they written in Marathi only?
They have written only in Marathi.
Have they been translated?
I think you see Jan Narikar's book, you see, Return of Vaman.
Has been, but the other writers that she mentioned.
Into English.
But I think Bal Phondke and Narayan Tharak haven't been translated.
No, they have not been.
They have not been.
You translate them.
The last question I have. So, congratulations, Archana. One has also seen you working on things, and then we had conversations on how you were thinking of writing on that. Tell me, as an author, how much time and space did you dabble with because you were working, doing your daily routine, and what kind of emotional journey that you went through as an author?
Huge. Emotional journey, to answer your second part of the question, huge, because writing is it's like having a baby. So yes, you identify so much with your work first, and then you have to actually distance yourself. As I said, I wrote this book, and then for 2 years I didn't show it to anybody. But the emotions are so strong. The story is just trying to come out. So there was no other alternative but to write it, and then I just sat on it for a few years, and then showed it to a few years, and then revised it. So there is a lot of time is consumed in that. Yes.
Yeah. Best wishes.
Thank you. Thank you. I think on that note, you're all invited for dinner.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.